being honest about your past is very different than being honest about your present. Almost every time we look up today, we see someone caught doing something they shouldn't have been doing. And we know this doesn't just happen with the people that we see in the news. It can just as easily happen to us. And even if our issue may be very different than what we see on the news, we still know that we do things we shouldn't do. When we do these things, we usually do them in secret, not wanting anyone to know what we're doing and hoping that we don't get caught. And even though there may be a part of us saying we shouldn't do it, we can rationalize and ignore this and continue doing what we're doing anyway. And then if and when we do get caught, we can find out something about ourselves by how we respond to it. If we respond by blaming someone else or denying it happened, we are most likely not ready to stop and will continue doing what we are doing. If we respond with sorrow and remorse, we're more likely to be ready to stop. However, we've all seen someone that was sorrowful and remorseful when they were caught, only to find them later doing the same thing that they were doing. So what steps can we take to help us stop doing what we shouldn't do and bring our actions more in line with who we want to be? Each of us will probably go through a different process with this because we may all have a different issue that we're working on. So there will be no set formula. But I can share a couple of principles from my life that helped me stop doing what I shouldn't be doing and helped my actions to reflect who I wanted to be. There is not anything special about my story, and I'm not sharing this to draw attention to the fact that I made changes in my life, because the fact is I wouldn't have needed to make changes if I hadn't been doing things that I shouldn't have been doing. I'm simply hopeful that this might be helpful to someone else that might be doing something they shouldn't be doing and has a desire to change that. The issue I needed to change in my life centered around being committed or faithful in a relationship. As far back as high school, I can remember positioning myself and my actions to see if someone else showed an interest in me. And if they did, I would pursue that to see where it might lead, even though I was already in a relationship. I was never honest about this, but at one point I did stop to think about what I was doing, and I decided that I should break off the relationship I was in. However, when I saw the pain caused by doing this, I got back into the relationship because of that. I think this is an issue we see happen all too often today. Someone wanting to spare the brief pain, either for someone else or themselves, of breaking off a relationship, only to cause a more devastating pain later by being unfaithful in the relationship. And this is exactly what I did. Partly because I had never been honest about what I was doing, on into college and the early years of marriage, I continued with my same actions, which ultimately led to me having affairs and the end of my marriage. And even though there were multiple reasons for the problems in the relationship, instead of focusing on resolving the problems, I did things that I shouldn't have done. After all this had happened, I did spend some time examining my life, and I made a commitment to not repeat the same pattern I had been following. And when I did start another relationship, I took a step towards keeping this commitment by being honest about the things I had done in my past. But I soon found out that being honest about your past is very different than being honest about your present. And even though I didn't have any other affairs, I still found myself wanting to look at other people or hug other people or say things to other people in a way that I should not have done. And then one day, my wife suggested something that would change my life forever. She suggested that we end each day by telling each other what we had done wrong that day. Now, it's one thing to lie by being silent about what you're doing, but it's another thing altogether to lie by being silent about what you're doing when you have committed to talking about it. This was the first step in helping my actions reflect who I wanted to be. When we tell the truth about our present, we can no longer do things in secret, hoping no one will catch us. Instead, we actually tell on ourselves. Now, this alone doesn't mean we will change, because we all have people we can confide in that will sympathize with our situation and not hold us accountable. And this fact led to the second step in helping my actions reflect who I wanted to be. Being accountable to someone who is affected by our actions brings a whole new level to accountability. When I was accountable to telling the truth to my wife, who was directly affected by what I was doing, it was humiliating and something that I wanted to change. But the change was not immediate. And for 3 straight weeks, I had to tell the truth about looking at someone else or hugging someone else or saying something to someone else in a way that I shouldn't have done. This highlights a very important fact. Changing things we shouldn't be doing will most likely require that we have help from someone else. And what each party has to offer will be equally important. Not only was it important that I not quit and give up on telling the humiliating truth, it was equally important that my wife did not quit and give up on hearing the humiliating truth. This was hard for both of us, but the hard work paid off, because in week 4, something changed. I no longer wanted to look or hug or say things in a way to other people that I shouldn't. And even though this was an exercise my wife and I started almost 20 years ago, the effect it had back then is still true today. Now, this story is specific to my journey, and each of us will probably have many different issues on the journey to stop doing things we shouldn't be doing and making our actions reflect who we want to be. But regardless of what issue we're talking about, the 2 steps we looked at today would probably apply. If we would commit to tell the truth about our present actions and be accountable to someone who is affected by these actions, we would probably start seeing fewer occasions where we see someone else or ourselves caught doing something we shouldn't do. This will help to reduce the pain we see in our world caused by doing things we shouldn't be doing and start to replace it with a higher level of integrity, which I think most of us would agree we need today. I want to thank you for being a part of the journey in creating a world of love without labels.